The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply. USAA.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing
Basketball. Here's our hosts, Steve Collins. And Bill Flitter.
Coaches, welcome to another episode of Coaching Youth Hoops. I am your host, Coach Bill Flitter. Today we have a guest, Kent Mercer. Kent Mercer is the head athletic trainer at Salle High School. But before we get to Kent, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Game Changer. Game Changer is what keeps the lights on around this podcast. And if you haven't checked out Game Changer, coaches, go to gc.com/Game Changer. It will seriously blow your mind. If you're a youth coach, high school coach, whatever type of coach you are, their basketball app is absolutely mind-blowing. And what it can do from a recording standpoint, stats standpoint, keeping track of your families, and if somebody can't make it to a game, the live video streaming is absolutely outstanding. Again, gc.com/Coaching Youth Hoops. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, coaches, Kent is the head athletic trainer, at De La Salle High School in Concord, California. If you're in the sports world, you know De La Salle from their 200-plus game winning streak of football. A movie has been made about their coach. Kent keeps all the kids over there healthy. He's been in the sports medicine business for over 35 years, 26 of those years at De La Salle High School. I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes. He's married, has 2 kids. Just learned that one of his kids is following in his footsteps, going into medicine himself. So, Kent, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I met Kent when I coached at De La Salle. He was on staff, and not only that, a very personal story. He basically kept my wife healthy when she had brain surgery and got her the rehab that she needed. So always in gratitude for the work that Kent does for not only kids, but for our community in general.
Thank
you.
So
Kent, we're going to talk about keeping kids healthy. I got a bunch of questions, but I'd just love to hear your story, how you got started, why this is such a passion of yours. I mean, to be at De La Salle for 26 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special place. And I'm thankful for, to be here and have the support of the school, the administration, and obviously our programs do well, and that makes things, that drives a lot of the things. But, over that 26 years, we've seen a lot of changes in sports.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But this has always been something I've been passionate about. I kind of fell into it. It was obviously something I studied in school, and never didn't necessarily see myself being in a position like this. But when I was in grad school, I did an internship here at the Salle, and after that first year, they invited me back again, and things just kind of fell into place, and it's been a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's dive in. If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, we talk obviously about the skills. We talk about the mental side of the game, but this is the first time we've actually are diving deep into the body and the physical side, which we've all heard the stories, read the stories about young kids and overuse. Can you just speak to? You said, about these changes over the last 35 years of your career and what you saw 35 years ago versus what you're seeing today.
I mean, I think we're seeing certainly kids coming into the high school level now that are specifically doing one sport. It becomes a year-round adventure for them, and they don't change it up. They feel like they need to be just doing that one thing, which I think is unfortunate, both physically and mentally. I think sometimes they don't give themselves opportunities to try different things, and there's such a benefit for that, physically, mentally, if they are doing different things. And it's okay. They're not going to fall behind. They're still growing. They're still learning, still maturing, and this is the time when they should be doing multiple things. So certainly, we have an award that we give out at the school that for 3-sport athletes. If you're in a varsity sport, 3 different varsity sports, there's a special award, and we give it out like once every 5-10 years. It just doesn't happen. And I understand, we play things at a high level, and but there's not that desire to try different things.
Let's talk real for a second on that particular topic. Is how bad is it really for a one sport athlete?
Well, I think, you're particularly the high school kid, that's maturing. They have open growth plates. And if you're doing the same thing again and again and again, you're going to break down, or you're going to have these imbalances which create other problems. You take a thrower, for instance. You're constantly doing something one-sided, one direction, and you're not having that same balance on opposite side, and not giving adequate rest where things can kind of be reset. You're going to have issues. And the challenge is that kids don't often, they think of, they have discomfort and they're going to wake up the next morning and it's going to be gone. And then it just kind of progresses from there. And they attribute it to other things as opposed to what it is, because it's what they enjoy. But the biggest thing is with, kids, the open growth plates, and still physically maturing, yet we're asking them to do things that maybe they're not capable of doing, or doing on a regular basis.
Well, I think that's so true from even a cognitive standpoint. And you're looking at it from a physical standpoint as well, throwing a fastball, right? Or in the case of the football, right, it's just demanding and hard on the body, right? 2 bodies smashing together like it is. So
but even a basketball player that's constantly jumping and they're going off the same foot, developing tendonitis. Well, that tendonitis progresses into an avulsion fracture, because the bone is not as strong as the tendon and it's pulling it away. And these are simple things that if they're aware of it and they're changing things up, can easily be mitigated.
Well, and let's bring this down a bit to the younger levels. So we're talking grade school. One of the things that I see, and I never want to be the cause of the problem. And so in my club program, I'm always pretty lenient with, or non-demanding, I don't know if that's the right word, but of multi-sport athletes, where I know there are other sports that they participate in. Soccer is one of the worst. Is you don't show, you don't play, right? Or you miss X number of practices. You're sitting on the bench. I don't want to do that because I know for the kid that's not healthy, it adds stress to their life. So now we're stacking, it's not uncommon for a young middle school person to play 3 sports in the same season, right?
Yeah.
So there's, we talk about multi-sport athletes, but then, we're not saying in the same or stacking those either in the same season or same time frame.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing.
So what is that? Yeah, I mean, you're talking about overuse then.
Yeah, and it's
Sorry, go
not
ahead.
not okay. I'm doing 3 sports and I'm doing basketball, soccer, and baseball all at the same time. But I think the challenge is too is that sports now there are no specific seasons. Everything feels like it needs to be going,
Right.
and they've all kind of creeped into each other. So, and I think that's where coaches have to understand, families have to understand. You can't overload them physically like that, and figuring out how you can go about doing that. So it becomes a challenge because everybody needs to be on board with the same plan. And if you have a coach like you that kind of gets that, it's a little bit easier. But not all coaches are that way, or not all programs are that way.
Programs, yeah. And what are you seeing because you're seeing freshmen, right, come in early? What's the most common injury they're bringing to you in their first year of high school? What do you see?
I think issues that we tend to see are things related to growth plate, but which really comes down to flexibility. You kind of think about that kid at that age, they're growing, they're getting taller, they're gaining weight, they're gaining mass. Their body is responding to what they're doing. And oftentimes, one of the things that I such an emphasis on is just overall flexibility. What are they doing to work on their overall ability to move, the mobility and the flexibility of their body, so they can go out and move the way they need to when they're on the court? If you have somebody like a basketball player, if they're unable to rotate their upper body and kind of disassociate their shoulders from their hips where they can turn, then they're going to be in a position where they're still going to try to do it, but now all of a sudden that lower half is in a bad position, and then you're going to develop issues with the knee or have something that's compromised there because they're going to try to do it. They may not do it the right way, and it kind of goes back to not having that proper flexibility and mobility.
That's a really good point. That's one of the things I'm always surprised about, with my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, is they can't touch their toes.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily something that they work on, and it's never really a priority. Coaches want to be out on the court, emphasizing everything that's taking place on the court, but there's so many things that you can do outside of that to help improve the things that are going on there. And that's one of the big things that we work on with the kids, is getting them to understand. And it may not be during practice, but simple things that they can do when they're at home. They're sitting, reading, doing homework, they can be stretching out too. Yeah,
I often talk about that too. It's like you're sitting in front of watching a show, just take 10 minutes to stretch do a few yoga poses, whatever, whatever you want to do. It doesn't take,
Well, I love foam rollers because it gives
mm,
you feedback. It's going to tell you when you
mm,
have an area that's tight or something that's different, right side versus left side.
yeah,
So it's giving you that feedback, and you need to, think about that, and it will correlate. Like if you have tightness in certain areas or you have deficiencies, it's going to appear as you get on the court. So, and it's with the amount that they're doing, I think the more that they can understand their bodies and how they're functioning and on a day-to-day basis, the better off they're going to be. And the earlier you can do that, the better off they're going to be, whatever sport they're doing.
yeah. So if you had, well, actually, I'm going to hold that question. Let's talk about sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, where does that play into this equation?
So the three things that we talk about,
Mhm.
are flexibility and mobility. I kind of combine those two.
Okay.
Sleep and nutrition.
Mm.
Those are the things that are going to take a kid that's very talented. If they have those things in order, it's just going to bring them to that next level. And, kids typically don't sleep enough,
Yep.
or it's broken. And that could be for a number of reasons. It could be, the schedule that they have and not balancing out getting homework done, and but then also sound nutrition. There's simple things that they can do to make sure that they have adequate energy for when they get out there. Make sure that they're hydrated well. And these are things that they don't necessarily think about, but play a huge part of what goes on when they go out there to compete. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say that's the one thing that just, uh, I would say irritates me, right? When I get a kid and, I can see it, they're yawning. Like, what? Like, one, I always think, and I know I need to be a little bit more empathetic to the situation, but it's like, they're kids. Why are they so drained? And I always ask them, well, did you stay up last night? They're like, oh yeah, I was, doing X, Y, or Z, right? Either, like you said, I was doing homework, I stayed up and binged a show, I was on social media, I was talking to my friends, whatever it may be. But there's that lack of sleep, I think is detrimental. And I think that if we continue to have that lack of sleep, of all of the things, and again, this is my non-professional opinion, is sleep is number one, followed by those other things. If you don't get the adequate amount of sleep, then the flexibility, and what was the third thing you said? Mobility, flexibility, sleep, nutrition, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sleep is when our brains rest, our bodies recover, right? Anyway, I think it's we got to get kids to bed, pull the phones away, turn the TV off.
And that's what's hard is, they don't necessarily attribute or see those things or see how it affects them, whether it be in the classroom or on the court. And, they go out there and think, well, I'm functioning, I'm doing it. Well, if they had these things in place, they'd probably be doing it at a higher level. And, things would come easier to them. And so, yeah, those are some things that we really try to emphasize. Obviously, there's only so much control, but you really try to get the kids to understand, we'll look at heart rate variability and seeing, like, when a kid wakes up, what's their heart doing? And, you can start to see, like, okay, they're not getting adequate rest. They're kind of staying at this level that's inappropriate. And so then you start to look at other things that might be affecting that, family structure, or other things that we can kind of help to control, and in the sense of hydration, nutrition, and just getting them to understand.
Well, and you bring up the idea of nutrition and hydration. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand there too. So, I see you drink water. You saw me take a sip earlier. I constantly carry a water bottle. It's created a habit in my family to carry a water bottle around. Because even when I monitor it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't have enough water today.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, teenager, young person, whatever, they're not thinking about hydration. They're thinking about hydration while when they're tired because they just did their sport or during the sport, you take a water break, right? Coaches at least schedule water breaks. But okay, all the other time that they're not playing that sport, they're not thinking about nutrition is in
Yeah. And I mean,
bad.
we talk about,
I mean, they're not thinking about hydration.
yeah, I mean, we want the kids to be carrying around a water bottle all day long, and they're constantly filling it. So, we want to make sure that they are getting appropriate, because we know what we're going to ask of them when they go out on the athletic field, regardless of the sport. We're going to ask them to do things that are going to be challenging. And if they're not prepared for that, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, and I'm having technical difficulties here. I got to change this. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I saw you were slowing down.
Well, I'll just use this for now. There we go. Can you hear me okay, Kent?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So yes, no, exactly. I just think nutrition, hydration, huge thing. We talked about flexibility, mobility, sleep. If you had a magic wand, what would the day in the life of uh, a high school, let's start with high school first. What would that look like, or an athlete or a sports, an athletic kid in high school, right? What does that look like? And maybe you could talk broad strokes, maybe even over the year. Like, what's the magic wand situation here?
I think a lot of it's time management.
Hmm.
They have a lot of downtime. They need to utilize that time in a appropriate fashion, so they can get the things that they need to do completed, and then do the things that they enjoy. And I mean, obviously for me, the emphasis has always been on, okay, academics are first, and then the other stuff is secondary. And you should enjoy both: opportunity to learn in the classroom and opportunity to learn on the court. It gives you get those social interactions and that opportunity to be around friends and do something that hopefully you enjoy. So I think it's time management. So with the understanding that, okay, as a part of this, the sleep is a part of this, and I need to factor in those things. So, you get your homework done. You have some time after school before practice. You're doing some stuff. So it's not after practice when you're tired and you got to get home and eat and shower and you're trying to do the homework.
Yeah.
You just think about your day and you're planning things out. And it may not be that you got to sit there for an hour and grind this stuff out, but do a little bit so it's not as much later on. And when maybe you're run down at the end of the day and you don't want to do it. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's an important thing for kids to learn, especially as they go on. They need to be able to have that, because they may be on their own, as they go off to college. There's nobody there that's going to be telling them you need to do this. It's like you got to figure it out. And if they don't have those skills, if they've been like handheld the whole way, it can be challenging for them.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, the thing that comes to mind when you mention that is, it's okay to be bored too, right? And to I know when you and I were growing up, like our summers felt so long, right? And or even just like a weekend, we'd get bored, right? And there's nothing to do, right? The typical complaint to your parents, right? And now I just think kids are just way overscheduled with everything, athletics and academics. At least I know in the Bay Area that it's that way, right?
Yeah, and I think it's challenging because they are, and they don't necessarily get that downtime or that free time where they can do whatever they want, and they miss out on those things where they get to kind of explore different things. So yeah, I think and those are things that you have to factor in too. Like sometimes you need those mindless activities.
You do, absolutely, right?
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.